Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Machan Lahira Online Smicha. There is a Mishnah, a Gemara in Chulin Daf Mem Dalid, Taner Rabbanan. Hanishal l'chacham, if you ask a shaila by a chacham, v'timei, the chacham says it's tamei, lo yishal l'chacham v'yitar. Don't bring it the same item to another chacham and try to get a green light. Maybe the other one will say tar. L'chacham v'asar. If you went to a chacham and he said that this food item is asur, or this shiloh yas is asur, lo yishal l'chacham v'yata. Don't go to another person and try to get a heter. So we see that once you ask a chacham and the chacham made a ruling, don't try to get a different ruling more compatible to what you want from another chacham. Now the cases that the Gemara mentioned is with the first chacham said tamei, or the first chacham said asur. That's not good for you. You're going to try to find somebody, another chacham or rav, that will be more lenient. And the question is, what would be the other way around? So in Yeridei Siman Reish Mem Beis Sif Lamed Aleph, when the Ramah brings this halacha, he says, even though we learned that a chacham that says asur, no other chacham is allowed to be matir, as long as it's based on shikol adas. If you're saying that it's mutter because of judgment call, that's not strong enough. If you know for sure that the person was machmir and he made a flat out mistake, the first rav made a flat out mistake in a Dvar Mishnah, then you're allowed to challenge overrule the first isser. However, even though you're not allowed to uproot it, but you're allowed to have a discussion and try to convince the first rav that he might have gone over and aboard with that isser. And the Ramah adds, and even if it was the other way around, that the first rav was matir and the heter already was accepted, the next rav, the next chacham, can't override it just based on shikol adas. So the Ramah, it seems to be pretty clear that it works both ways. It works if the first rav was assered it, the second rav can't be matir unless it's again in both cases it will be unless it's a clear mistake, or even if the first rav was matir it, you're not allowed to be, the second one you're not allowed to go, and the second rav is not allowed to asser it. Now there is an interesting Gemara. The Gemara in Maseches Gittin Daf Hey says a story of Bar Hadya. Bar Hadya was going to be a shliach to deliver a get. So he went over to the Mamuna Gittin, the one in charge of the Gittin in the city, and that was Rav Achi. And he said, okay, please give me the clear instructions. What do I have to do? So Rav Achi tells him, you have to stand there and watch every single letter as it's being written. So you should be able to testify that it was written properly, the Shema, as the way a get is supposed to be written. The same person went later to somebody else, to two other chachamim, to Rav Ami and Rav Asi, and they said, no, you don't have to go so far. You don't have to stand there and watch every single letter. And if you're going to say you don't mind doing it, let me tell you, the Rav Achi and Rav Ami and Rav Asi tell this gentleman, if you think you're going to do it anyways, it's going to backfire on us. Because nimtza to moitzi laz al gittim harishonim. What you're basically going to be doing is saying all those gittim that were written before and the shliach didn't stand by every single letter are not kosher. So you're letting out a false rumor, passing on the earlier gittim. So the question, and all the Mefarshim over there ask on two ends: why would the Bar Hadya, who got psaked in from Avachi, who was the Memuna Gittin, and he tells him, he instructs him what to do. Why did he go and ask Rav Ami and Rav Asi what they thought? You're not supposed to be doing that. And how about Rav Ami and Rav Asi? Why did they respond and override what Rav Achi said? So in the Achronim, they actually discussed this halacha of overriding a previous psak din, and they say there are two hezberim, there are two reasons why a second chacham should not override the psak din of the first one. One of the reasons is mitzad kavod chacham. It's not fair, it's not respectful, if somebody gave a psak din, and the person obviously is an honorable, respectable person, if he gave a psak din, to override him is lacking, is uncovered. And the second svara is the svara of shavya nafsheh chaticha d'isura. The second you got a psak din that said that this thing is tamei or this thing is asur, it became a prohibited item for you. You took it upon yourself, you accepted at that time, you accepted that answer, it became a prohibited item for you. Once it became prohibited, you can't undo it anymore. I don't care who you go to, once you accept it upon yourself as a prohibited item, you're not allowed to have it. What's the difference between these two answers? The difference between these two answers is, does it apply in both ways? Meaning, I understand if the first Rav was machmir, then you can't go to the second Rav to be Mekel because Shav Yanashech Tichad Yisura. You already made it prohibited. But if the reason is, if that's the only reason, what's if the first Rav was matirit? If the first Rav is matirit, it never became a prohibited item for you. Then you may go to a second Chacham and see, maybe, you have a hunch, maybe this is not the right thing, maybe it's to be machmir. Rabbi Akiva Eger, the Shulchan Aruch, proves beautifully how la halacha, both of these reasons are right. He says, when you look in the words of the Ramah, when he discusses this din, when he speaks about once a person got a psak din of Isser, and he's trying to get a hiras heter, over there the Ramah says, Chacham she'asar, no other Chacham is allowed to be matir. There is no Chacham that is allowed to be matir. However, when the first Chacham was matirit, and the second Chacham is going to be make it usher, over there he doesn't say you're not allowed to. He just says ein l'sheni lesser. There is no chiyuv. There is no isser. He doesn't say there is an isser for him to do it. He says it's preferably not to do it. What's the difference? When it's shavya nafshech tichad surah, then you not allowed to. And that's if the first chacham made it usher, and now the second one wants to make it mutter. If the first one made it mutter, then it's suggested not to do it. It's proper not to do it, overriding because of the covered chacham. Now the Gemara I mentioned before, since you're talking about the covered chacham, the Gemara before, the reason why Rav Ami or Rav Ashi perhaps were able to override it is because, yes, I understand Rav Ashi was worried about, you should be worried about the covered of Rav Ashi, who said you have to be more intense watching. But don't forget, and it's at his covered, we shouldn't override it. But weigh that Rav Achi's covered against all the Mamunei Gittin before, all the generations and all the Gittin that were written before. By putting too much emphasis on one person's covered, we're going to passel every get that was done different than him. So therefore, they were able to override it.